Hey, welcome back. Dan here, Ultimate Boston Red Sox Collector page on Facebook. Part two of my two-part video that I'm doing today, talking about my collecting history, my past, my present, and my near future, and what my goals are within the hobby. So I left off on my last video by talking about in the late 90s, I had streamlined my collection quite a bit. I still had a lot of my cards, but I was looking to basically focus on player collecting. And I remember I was collecting several different guys. I was collecting guys like Cal Ripken, Nolan Ryan, Wade Boggs, Roger Clemens, Pete Rose, Steve Carlton, Robin Yount, George Brett, Dave Winfield. Those are the ones that I can remember. And I was going to shows, because we still had shows back then, and I would go through people's star boxes, and okay, I'd grab these 10 Pete Rose cards, and I'd grab these 10 Nolan Ryans, and I would just pick out, it might be $8-10 worth of cards. Back then, I might only pay $2 or $3 for them now, because they're so overproduced, but I was buying cards that I didn't have, and I was trying to get as many different cards as I could of each player. And I had a binder for each player. Some of them I had multiple in one binder because I didn't have that many. But I got kind of sick of doing that, and I'm like, geez, there's so many cards being produced, and there's so many cards of these guys, and it's getting kind of expensive. So I got to pick one and go with it and just start a super collection. And so I decided, and I don't remember if this is exactly how I did it, but this is how I remember it, is I said, who do I have the most different cards of right now? Who am I immediately on the fast track to really getting a super collection going? And I went through and counted, and lo and behold, it was Dave Winfield. And I decided Dave Winfield it is. Winfield at that time was nearing the end of his career. He had had a very good career and had a little career resurgence back in the early 90s. He was he was done at that point. So I was actually collecting Winfield a little earlier, because Winfield, I think, played through 96. So this probably, I'm probably incorrect on my dates. This probably was in 94, 95 when I decided to do this. Because I remember a buddy of mine calling me up when Winfield had hit a go-ahead base hit in a game when he was with the Indians, which was at the very tail end of his career. And so, yeah, I have my dates wrong. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. It was definitely still while he was playing when I decided to super collect him. So at that point, I just put all the other cards aside, and I said, I'm going to start going for Dave Winfields. And I started selling my collection and then purchasing as many Dave Winfield cards as I could on eBay. And eBay at the time was pretty much where I got everything. I was buying the hobby magazines still. I was still looking in magazines and on other places trying to find cards. And at the time, there was several Dave Winfield collectors, and there was one particular Dave Winfield collector who was a major super collector, had been collecting him for several years and had an extensive collection. And I remember corresponding with him a few times and trying to see what he needed, and I found his want list, and I didn't have anything to help him with, but he had a lot of duplicates, and I think we worked out a couple of trades over time, but I gradually built my collection to the point where I had a whole bedroom in my apartment in my old house. It was just dedicated to Dave Winfield. And as most of you know, Dave Winfield spent the better part of his career with the New York Yankees. And I am an absolute, and always have been, an absolute Red Sox fan. And I collected Winfield solidly for 4 or 5 years, I would say. Maybe, yeah, I'd say 4 or 5 years. And a lot of the stuff I had was Yankee stuff. I had a Yankee jersey. I had Yankee game-used pants that I had gotten. I had a lot of stuff, and a lot of it was Yankee. I had a lot of posters, Yankees. And as I was getting more and more stuff, I noticed that some of the other Yankee collectors, other Winfield collectors were getting out of the hobby. They were selling their collections, and I was like, gee, this is a great opportunity to expand my collection. And then it just hit me one day that I'm a diehard Red Sox fan, and I walk into this baseball room in my house, and all I see is Yankee stuff. And it literally hit me like, what am I doing? Why am I been collecting this guy? He's a Hall of Famer, no doubt. He's definitely going to be in the Hall of Fame. And it's kind of a good investment. I had a bunch of autograph cards and relic cards and most of his base cards, a lot of his oddballs. I had tons of autographs and photos, and I had a photo of him with every team he played for autographed, and I had a nice collection. I had it displayed really nicely as well. And it just hit me that one day. I don't want to collect Dave Winfield anymore. What do I want to do next? And shortly after that, I started selling all my Winfield stuff. I'm pretty confident I lost money on that collection because all the other Winfield collectors all did the same thing, like right before I did. So I didn't have anybody to sell to. So I was just relying on eBay auctions for a lot of stuff. And I remember I definitely did not make money on that. I lost money on that. And I it is what it is. We all have done that at some point in the hobby. We've lost money on things. I don't regret that at all. It was a phase of my collecting, but that's when I turned my attention towards Red Sox, and I started buying Red Sox stuff. I started trying to find large lots of cards. I still had a lot of my duplicate cards. I had sold a lot of my sets at that point, but I had a ton of duplicates from the late 70s all the way up into the mid 90s. So I rifled through all my duplicates and I pulled out about 800 to 1,000 different Red Sox cards out of my duplicates. And I started rebuilding with that. And then I bought a couple of larger size lots on eBay. I started buying lots of Clemens and Boggs and whoever else I could at the time. And I built my collection back up to between 5,000 and 6,000 cards. And I didn't have much for memorabilia. I was pretty much just focusing on cards. And then once again, it just hit me all of a sudden. I'm a grown man. How long do I want to do this? Do I want to get, how far into this do I want to get? Can I learn something from my Dave Winfield collecting days? And I decided, you know what, I'm just going to sell it. I put it all up. I sold it as a one giant lot of between 5,000 and 6,000 different cards. Whoever bought it got a great deal, and they got a lot of cool cards. And again, I kicked myself 6 short months later. Within that, I got bored. I'm a collector. I have collecting in my genes and baseball in my genes, and I just absolutely can't not collect. And I said to myself, what makes me happy? And it's collecting cards. And so I decided, and I want to start my Red Sox collection up again. So I had a few things left over, and when I say a few, I'm talking 10 or less items. I remember I had a Carlton Fisk relic card that I had not been able to sell, and I had a couple of magazines, and I had maybe a few other things, and that was it. I started back up with that part of my collection. This is probably, I'd say, about 10 years ago, if I had to guess. And in 10 short years, I guess you could say, I've accumulated what I've accumulated, which is probably one of the largest Red Sox collections in the world when you incorporate cards and memorabilia. I know there's people that have more cards than I do. I know there's people that probably have more memorabilia than I do. Maybe I haven't seen a collection that has more memorabilia than I have, but who knows? There's a lot of people that don't broadcast their collections. They just have them. So that's how I got back into Red Sox collecting, and that's what's led me to today. I've used primarily eBay. I would say 85% of the items in my collection have been purchased on eBay, especially memorabilia-wise. I go to shows, like I said, I've talked about in the past. I go to the Wilmington show usually once during the year. It got postponed, the spring show. I think it's postponed until June, and we'll see what happens. I don't know how Massachusetts is. Maine has kind of extended the stay-at-home till the end of May, and then they're gradually going to be reopening other segments of business every 30 days after that, which take us right basically through summer. So it'll be interesting to see if that show is on. I may try to get down there. I know I've kind of talked negatively about it, but in the it gives me an opportunity to get some new stuff, and I'm always looking for that. So I might just have to swallow my pride on that one and go take a ride down there. So that's where I'm currently at. And if you've watched my videos, you know that I'm Red Sox only through and through. What I've been noticing is as I'm watching more other collectors' videos, I'm seeing that most of these people have sub-collections of some kind. I know a guy that I've traded cards with and sent cards to who has a blog, who doesn't do YouTube, but has a blog, and really hasn't been active at all on the blog for the better part of 3 years. In fact, I sent him about 150 cards last year, and I got a very, hey, yeah, thanks for the stuff, and I never got anything back. It kind of turned me off a little bit. We had done some trades in the past, but this guy has a Bill Verdon collection on the side. So by no means a superstar, but he collects Bill Verdon, and that's great. I always thought, what could I possibly do at this point in my collecting years? What could I do as a side collection? And I've been racking my brain, and a couple weeks ago I said, what would be something that I could start fairly inexpensively, because like all collectors, I'm on a budget, and my budget is a little bit impacted right now because I'm not working any overtime at work. That's usually my overtime is my card money. So had to cut back a little bit, and I don't really have the disposable income to just all of a sudden jump in on another collection. And I'm thinking, do I want to collect one player? Do I want to collect different autographs? Do I want to collect memorabilia? Do I want to collect cards? What do I want to collect? And who would I want to collect? Would I want to focus on an individual? And I've been watching other people's videos and seeing what kinds of things that they have. And some of you guys have some really cool stuff outside of your major collections. And I don't have that. I'm kind of jealous. And I want something else to kind of focus some attention to without spending a ton of money on it. So I got the collecting itch yesterday. I was down in my basement. I was on the other side. And last week, at one point, I thought, what else could I collect? How about just cards of Hall of Famers? And it could be, there's a lot of, my era type players, guys that played in the 90s that have been elected in the last few years that we kind of forget about, that you can get their cards dirt cheap. You can get Randy Johnson, Larry Walker. You can get Craig Biggio. You can get Vladimir Guerrero, Pedro. I mean, I have a bunch of Pedros. I have, obviously, Pedro, Jim Rice, Carlton Fisk, Yaz. Those guys. I have Tony Perez, Eckersley. I have those guys. Ted Williams. I have those guys in my Red Sox duplicates. I want to keep those separate. And I'm thinking, what about the other guys that are in the Hall of Fame? There's so many guys and there's so many cards. And I'm like, how could I start? So I pulled out the whopping 25 to 30 cards I have in my duplicates, and the other room was kind of comical when I did that. And yesterday I'm down here and I realized, I look up on top of one of my shelves and I have an unopened box of 1990 Fleer baseball because it had the Roger Clemens card on the bottom of the box, and I just left it that way. 1990 Fleer, there's nothing in it for any value. Sammy Sosa at one point was the only card that was really worth anything. David Justice a long time ago. Kevin Moss. As I'm saying these, is because I pulled these because spoiler alert. I decided, what the heck, I miss opening packs of cards. So I took that box down off the shelf and I opened up those cards and I pulled about 35 to 40 cards of Hall of Famers out of there. So it was fun. It was like, oh, there's a Craig Biggio. Oh, there's a Harold Baines All-Star card. I'm pulling these cards out of here and I'm laughing because I'm like, these cards really aren't worth more than a dime to 20 cents a piece, but they're Hall of Famers, and I'm like, maybe this is how I get started. Then I got the wax box itch. I'm thinking, geez, I love opening packs and pulling cards. And even if there's no insert cards or gold cards or autograph cards, no chance of that stuff, it's still fun to just open packs and look back at the cards. And I'm thinking, if I do this, am I going to want to build sets again? So I opened up that box and I was just laughing afterwards. And then I went on Baseball Card Exchange, and they have a pretty good selection of boxes from like the late 80s and 90s. And I put 5 in my shopping cart and I was ready to hit the submit button. I says, I can spend this money. I could go on Sport Lots and buy probably 350 to 400 cards from the same seller that are all Hall of Fame cards, and I know they're going to be Hall of Famers. So do I want to rip boxes again? I don't know. And then the weirdest thing happens today. It's the first time I've looked at unopened boxes online. Probably ever. I've never looked at unopened boxes online. A coworker of mine comes up to me today. He's probably about my age, maybe a little younger. And he says to me out of the blue, he says, I was off yesterday, so I made an inventory sheet of all my unopened wax boxes. And I'm like, I looked at him, I says, you collect? He's like, oh, I was a big collector. And so he's going to give me a list of what he has. He says he has over 150 unopened wax boxes of baseball cards from the 80s and 90s. And so I'm going to kind of look at that. And then there's a convenience store that was open for years that closed down about 6 months ago, and she's got a pretty good hoard of baseball cards that she showed me a picture of today. She's looking to sell them, and I told her, if you give me a good price, I might buy all of them. So I might be coming into some serious amount of wax boxes here in the near future. So keep everybody posted on that. So what do people think? What do you think? Starting a Hall of Fame collection, even if it's just base cards of the junk wax era, starting out with that and just getting whatever I can. I'm not going to invest a lot of money in it. I'm going to put, pick up cards where I can. But what does everybody think about that? With a limited budget, I'd love to get a certified autograph card of as many Hall of Famers as I could, or relic cards, but I want to keep it in budget, and I want to continue to expand my Sox collection. So anybody have any comments on that? Let me know what you think. I'm going to end this now because I'm pushing 15 minutes here, and I've been talking a lot. So that's all I got for today. Leave some comments down below. Love to hear from people. Love to get some new subs. Let me know. All right? Everybody have a great night. Thanks.